can edit all of this. So this is Union Bay, which is where the colliery wharf was. Right out there was the colliery wharf for the Union Coal Company, which is later the Dunsmuir Coal Company, where they shipped the coal from Cumberland, and it went all over the world from here and into, I think, the 50s or 60s. They were still shipping coal out of here, and then it was dismantled. And the last sailing ship to carry coal, the last ship by sail, was in the late 40s.
And you wrote a poem about it.
Yeah, in the Toronto Review of Books.
Yeah.
But there's a story in the collection called The Selected Kid Curry, and it is about a pirate called Henry Wagner who had a boat called the Spray, or Spray, depends on the source, whether it had an article before it or not. And this boat, apparently it had a motor and it apparently had underwater exhaust, which made it quiet. This is the claim, although I've never entirely believed this. At any rate, he was robbing shops, businesses along the coast, up and down the coast for years. And there was a warrant for him from Washington State for a murder/robbery. And eventually they sent 2 special police officers to hide out in Union Bay, and they waited for several weeks until he robbed the Fraser and Bishop store. And Wagner shot one constable, Henry Westway, and he had sort of fight to the death with a guy called Ross, who they basically knocked each other unconscious, and the local constable, who didn't know that the other 2 special constables were there, came in and found them. And eventually, Wagner was hanged in Nanaimo, and he had an accomplice who had gone in. He jumped out the back window when the constables first intervened, and he escaped. He rowed the dinghy out to the Spray, and he tried to drive away in the Spray, but Wagner had taken the spark plugs, so he couldn't escape. So he rowed his dinghy from here to Lasqueti Island.
Holy shit.
And he was found there about 7 days later. His story is pretty crazy. He turned King's evidence against Wagner, which is part of the story that I wrote about. There's a scene in the courtroom in Nanaimo, and he goes to jail. And then when he gets out of jail, he ends up going back to robbing, but this time his partner is the cop who caught him on the ski. But that's a different story, and I didn't tell that in the book. But there's a myth that connects Henry Wagner to the Cassidy gang, cattle rustlers and train robbers from Montana and the West. So he was apparently Kid Curry was one of the sort of outlaws, and the myth is that he was actually part of that gang and that he had made it all the way to the coast and he escaped. And so my story, which is called The Selected Kid Curry, which is a kind of backwards reference to the collected works of Billy the Kid.
Oh yeah.
And these are sort of excerpts that go backwards in the life of Henry Wagner, as if he was in fact Kid Curry who had escaped and made it to the coast.
Right
so
on.
It takes him all the way back to his childhood.